Welcome to the show that has it all. This is the Betfred Super League.
What a game!
Champions, challengers, newcomers, leagues faithful. Hold on tight. This is the Betfred Super League 2024. There's nothing like league.
Yeah. No! Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped my ear off. What do you think?
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast, supported each and every week by Rugby League's major sponsors, Betfred. Well, the drama just keeps on coming, doesn't it? The race for the playoffs is reaching its climax. 3 teams safe, 3 more places up for grabs, and 5 clubs in contention for those. But I think this week, Stevo, I would like to call this edition of the podcast Yellow Peril, because the controversy again surrounding yellow cards and previously red cards having a bearing on those final placings.
It's the pressure of the playoff games, Eddie, to get into the playoffs. They've got to pull out all the stops, not just on the field of play, but off the field of play as well. And it'll get worse because it's difficult for a referee to make a suggestion that should I go up to the video, should I go to let someone else look and see how bad it is. I don't mind that, because if it is a real bad one, then he deserves to be sent off. But sometimes it could be 50-50. There's often when a player dives in when he's carrying the ball. So therefore, what was intended to be a chest-high tackle can be misconstrued as a head-high tackle. So it's difficult for everybody else concerned. And it does not surprise me that the coaches now are trying to make sure that they don't lose a player, because it's so important. To lose a player on the field of play, a lot of people don't realise it's a great advantage to the opposition.
Of course it is. But, you know, there is a growing feeling among coaches, as you say, supporters, pundits, observers. Now, I refrained from using the word cheating a couple of weeks ago when we first discussed this issue. But players staying down and conning the video referees and match officials, having to get them to look into these head-high shots through camera lenses while they're receiving treatment on the field. On balance, Stevo, to me, that doesn't seem right.
You're sort of half right and half wrong. And that's the sort of situation whereby the officials have that problem. The coaches have that same problem. And, of course, the fans, they'll make their own decision anyway. I mentioned last week that it's a common knowledge that stay down, we might get a penalty. But what is occurring now, because of what they call the bunker system in Australia and going to the video referee, it sort of brings it a little bit closer into saying, well, was it bad or was it a mistake? And it's that frustrates the fans, the coaches, and, of course, the players. So it's a difficult situation to get out of it. But it is surprising, Eddie, that we waited until virtually before the playoffs before there's a huge issue. We've had this issue all the way through the season. And I'm not whether I'm right about this, but I haven't heard many coaches complaining about it.
Well, let's look at the specifics. The League Leaders Shield decider, that's what it was billed, Wigan against Hull Kingston Rovers. Decided on Friday, I think, by 2 yellow cards for Hull KR. Joe Burgess for a flop. Now, when did we last see one of those? I might be totally mistaken, but that is a different argument. But then a more controversial one, Jai Whitbread sin binned for a high tackle on Tyler Dupree that was not thought initially to be a high tackle. Whitbread off the field, Dupree after a lengthy stoppage and numerous reviews, no doubt he carries on. Is that fair?
Well, it is in many ways, because he would have been checked out by the club doctor. They would have had to ensure that was he injured enough to be taken from the field of play. Now, we know that there's a call from a lot of coaches to say that why don't we utilize what they have in Australia, whereby if a player is deemed to be hit by a high tackle and so forth injured, taken from the field of play, he then cannot play the following week. Now, when you think about it, some Burgess has brought it to the forefront in saying that this will stop the play acting. But I'm not so sure, because you can only do that if the doctor states that he has to leave the field of play. But they're worried about the fact that they can go to the big screen, go to the system whereby let's have a look at it. And I think after they've done that, if they get punished and the player that has done the high tackle then gets suspended for 1 week, then obviously they've got it right.
Well, it appears that that's the case on this one, because while Joe Burgess and Whitbread were off the field, Whitbread, by the way, has got a 1-match ban now because of that tackle that everyone's talking about. When those two were off the field, Wigan scored 4 of their 5 tries. And here's the nub. Wigan win the match effectively against 12 men for 20 minutes. Stevo, a grand final this year could be decided by an issue like that.
But that's the game, Eddie. It's been in that. Do you say to players, I don't want you to even go anywhere near the head or anywhere near going brushing off the top of the shoulder? You've got to get your arms down. It's difficult to be able to do that because in certain circumstances, as I say, plenty of players often run with their head down. So they're virtually running into a would-be tackler who, with nothing left to stop him, but to more or less finish up aiming at higher than his shoulder, because he's coming, the man that's got the ball is coming in very low. So, look, it's a difficult situation. But we're at that period now. As I say, we come into the most important part of the season, is to get to the playoffs, try to win the Super League trophy. So everything wants to be brought forward to highlight it. And I don't think that's a bad idea, because it'll get the players to understand what they need. It'll get the coaches to try to coach them out of it. But more importantly, it'll keep the officials on their toes. There's nothing wrong with bringing out all these sort of situations. Is it right? Is it wrong? Because we want to make sure that the game is played correctly and that the referees are at the top of their game. They're not always at the top of the game, but this is one way we can try to do it. A lot of people will say, well, why are they sending it upstairs? Why don't they make a decision? And a lot of people might be right.
Well, the problem is if they're down for several minutes, then the video referee gets a view of slow motion replays. Look, I'm not saying necessarily yellow cards are a bad thing. And if you think about the Wigan-Hull Kingston Rovers match, Bevan French's try that eventually was the difference between the two sides, absolutely fantastic, wasn't it? Absolutely great.
Outstanding. I mean, that's what makes our game so good. When you see players that can achieve that, to do that sort of individual brilliance, or even just to be able to monitor a set pattern, a set move that will win you a game. And that's why it's such a wonderful game. But how many times do we often have to go through this situation of 5 drives and a kick, 5 drives and a kick? There's very few opportunities these days because the coaches, they work so hard, and that's why they have one man, a defensive coach. That's why he's there, because he wants to stop the opposition. It's so difficult for players these days to show their brilliance because the defenses are solid. They practice and practice and practice. And it's often been said, especially by a lot of the Australian coaches, that if you have a good defence, you've got a good chance of winning.
No question about that. The similar thing, though, happened on Saturday, Warrington against Saints. Lachlan Fitzgibbon, yellow carded for a high tackle on T. Ritson. Then Matty Lees, yellow carded for a shot on Josh Drinkwater. As he's going off the field, Lees can clearly be seen to ask Drinkwater why he wasn't leaving the field too if the injury was so bad. I'm sorry to say it, Stevo, but and I know you're justifying everything that's going on, but we do seem to have a problem here. I never thought we'd see it because, you see other sports and there is a bit of gamesmanship going on. I never thought we'd see it in rugby league.
Well, I have to go towards another sport, Eddie, to explain maybe that our youngsters coming through in any sport or whatsoever. But when you look at what is occurring at the top level of football, where if a moth is flying past one of these players, they seem to go down. And on the replay, you'll see that the man never touched him, never got anywhere near him. It's all this sort of play acting that they've brought into at a high level of professional sport. And people may argue about it, but it comes down the list. It comes down to the youngsters playing at that level. I've seen it, and I've seen it coming through for a long, long time. And it creeps into our game at the ages of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years of age, because they see these superstars who go down, if the wind's going in the wrong direction. It's something that we can't stop because they are heroes, and we also have heroes in our game.
So you're saying it's a society problem rather than a game problem. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's part of it. We've also got the problem, Eddie, as well. We're trying to eliminate having people, players, ex-players, sue the game itself because they're trying to say that the officials, that the game itself did not protect those players. The officials are trying to make sure that it's as clean as possible. And, some players don't take any notice.
Well, the disciplinary panel has had its say. Whitbread, as I say, 1 match ban. Matty Lees, 1 match ban. Lachlan Fitzgibbon, 1 match ban. And on top of all of that, Moses Mbai has got a 1 match ban as well as a result of the Saints Warrington match on Saturday. I think it's not just a British problem, Stevo, is it? It is worldwide, because hasn't Wayne Bennett come out and said something this week?
Oh, yes, and which is rather surprising because Bennett is one of these coaches that hardly says anything. But when he does talk, a lot of people listen. And he has made a shot and said, look, we should get rid of the bunker system.
Oh,
He thought that referees sending it up to the bunker, similar to what we do in regards, was that a foul, was that, etc., and so forth. And he seems to feel that the bunker system is not 100%, but nothing 100% when you're looking at situations like that. Now, Mr. Abdo is the CEO of the NRL, has scoffed at Bennett's suggestion and said, look, it's ridiculous for someone to say that we should not use technology to keep our game into the best category. In other words, no bad hits, no fighting, no sort of swearing at the referee, etc., and so forth. And okay, we've got this technology, and Abdo says we are using it to the benefit of the game. So that's why a lot of people are saying, wow, Wayne Bennett's come out and said something.
Yeah, and he's immediately been shot down in flames. Look, enough of all that. Enough of all this about the video referee, the bunker, yellow cards, red cards. Let's look at this race for the top 6, which continues on at a pace. Wigan, Warrington, Hull, Kingston Rovers, they are all there. Leigh, Salford, Saints, Leeds, Catalan, all fighting for the remaining 3. Now, the big story here is that St Helens facing 2 crucial games. Otherwise, they could miss out on the playoffs for the very first time in their history. I know that they've got loads of suspensions, injuries, 2 more suspensions this week. They've got players coming back, Makinson, Lomax, Percival, Clark, Dodd in the not too distant future. Jack Wellesby is now back. He came in off the bench at the weekend. But Stevo, Saints, it's unheard of. They could miss out on the playoffs.
Look, it happens to a lot of clubs, Eddie. If you get a string of injuries, there's just nothing you can do about it. The one thing about St Helens, we've often said it, I mean, their development of the youth, the youngsters coming through, is outstanding. And they've had to struggle at great odds to
They've lost 8 of their last 11, Stevo. 8 of their last 11 games beaten.
Which is unusual, as we know that. But I think you don't have to be Einstein to work out that when you've got so many of your star players that are not out on the field of play, there's only a certain amount of what youngsters can do with less experience. And it didn't surprise me that they're going through a bad patch. But it's all or nothing now, isn't it? Will they make a decision, which is often when it comes around to this just before the playoffs, will they rush a star player back before he's 100%? That's a difficulty that St Helens are going to have to be left with. And look, you've got to get into a situation whereby the coach will say, I might have to take a risk. I might have to take a risk on someone that's only 75% or even 65% fully fit. It's been done in the past, and it wouldn't surprise me. Look, St Helens know one thing. They know what it takes to win the trophy.
They do, but they didn't make one clean line break against Warrington on Saturday. They are struggling. But let's talk, Stevo, if I can call them this, and I'd say with all due respect, the lesser lights of the game. Hull KR have been a breath of fresh air this year. So have Leigh. So have Salford. Well done in particular to those 3 for making this such an intriguing season. Salford and Leigh, Salford small gates, trading punches with the big guns. Leigh, their rise over the last 2 years has been meteoric. Cup winners last year, playoff contenders against this time. Paul Rowley, Adam Lamb, they deserve medals, don't they? And Salford's Kid for a Quid initiative proves positive. 5,000 there or thereabouts at the weekend. Let's hope the kids bring the mums and dads back again, eh?
Look, you talk about doing something different within our game, and a kid in for a quid, fantastic. To come up with some idea like that is outstanding, and this is perhaps, in my opinion, has been the best season when I'm talking about struggling to get into the top to the playoffs. And also, as you say, you've mentioned those teams that have turned themselves around, because we only have to look back at all the grand finals. It's always been the same teams that are going to be there and winning it. So the more we get with the likes of Leigh and Salford, etc., and Hull Kingston Rovers, it's great for our game. I endorse it. I'm saying fantastic. Let's, we want more of that.
And we take our hats off to Leigh, Salford and Hull Kingston Rovers. The Catalans, Stevo, they're also in a spot of bother. They couldn't get over the top of Leigh despite a whirlwind start. And even when they put Sam Tompkins on the field, he couldn't inspire them to victory either.
No, it's been a poor season for them, and they've been up and down. But you also get that situation whereby a certain amount of players are past it, too old, and sometimes you don't have the development of the youngsters coming through. And it's very, very difficult. We often talk about the coaches as the most important sort of person in any club. But it's the development of youngsters. It's development of buying a player that you know will help increase their performances. And they've gone off the boil completely.
Talking of Sam Tompkins, by the way, he's a pundit on Sky. He's a player for Catalan. He's also now in the England setup as the team manager now. But he's all over the shop, Sam Tompkins, at the minute.
Well, I think it's a good move.
Yeah.
You know, quite often, any coach will sometimes look for someone with a lot more experience. But it's obvious that the England coach wants to make sure that he's got someone that the players can understand. And I don't mean talking to the players. I'm talking to a lot of these players who have played against him, who, you know, Sean Wayne knows exactly. He doesn't have to because it is an older player. And quite a lot of the in the squad perhaps never saw Sean Wayne play. But
he's not that old, Stevo. He's not your vintage.
I know, but what I'm saying is that for him to sit down with Sam Tompkins and for Sam Tompkins to then go and have a good conversation with one of the younger players or one of the newer players that are coming through is far more important because they understand what this man has achieved. It's been a wonderful credit to our game.
Oh, he has.
And not only that, Eddie, well done to Sean Wayne to bring someone in who, let's face it, he played again this season. So how close can you get to having played against these players to pass on the knowledge? I think it's a wonderful move.
And whatever happens over the next couple of weeks, it has been a fantastic year, and it all has still to be played for. And of course, then at the end of the campaign, we come to the Man of Steel Awards. Now, listen, I've never ever thought about this before, but in this position, I can now. Wouldn't it be fantastic? I wouldn't quibble if Willie Peters at Hull Kingston Rovers, Adrian Lamb, or Paul Rowley came into the Coach of the Year reckoning, and Sam Burgess, I suppose, has had an outstanding year too. My outstanding young player would be Junior and Semba. What a player he is developing into, and he's only 20 years of age.
Yep.
And then the big one, Mark Sneed, Matt Duffy, with them right up there when the voting went secret a few weeks back. Here's one from left field for you, Stevo. Mikey Lewis, Man of Steel. What do you think?
I think you're pretty close.
I take that as a huge compliment.
Well, and so you should. He's been the start of the show. I've always thought that who's ever the start of the show throughout the season should get the top award.
Sneed has as well, hasn't he? Mark Sneed and Duffy before he was injured.
Yeah, but I think the influence of having one player on the field of play has been more effective to the Rovers than any other team. And it is my choice.
Oh, wow, we agree.
I can't believe that you and I have actually picked out the same guy.
What about the coach? Who would you have as your Coach of the Year?
Well, it's going to be very, very difficult on that one. But I'd have to say that Willie Peters. I think Willie Peters has done a magnificent job at Hull KR.
Nice to think we're a couple of weeks ahead of the game here and we're getting our four penneth in before the committees all sit down and decide. we might have an influence for once. No, never. We never have an influence in our lives.
Well, no. You're wrong there, Eddie. Many years ago, I think we were actually on the committee in the early days.
We were.
Yeah.
We had no influence then either, Stevo. I went out to the loo one night and I know we had one man named on as Man of Steel. I came back and it had all changed. I'll never forget it as long as I live.
It just shows you. Never leave a committee. Never, ever leave a meeting because things can change. What would he know? What would that Eddie Hemmings know? Blah,
Correct.
blah, 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 blah.
Correct.
And but I do remember and saying to you as well, bit of a shock that, wasn't it? I'll never forget it.
Neither will I.
Oh, I tell you what, the look on your face and say, hang on, I thought we were about to give it to so-and-so. And
we will have to keep that a secret, by the way. We'll have to take those names to the grave, Stevo. Don't say a word. Don't say any more.
We would never do anything to hurt the game of rugby league, Eddie. You know that. We love it too much.
Definitely. Look, after the dust settles on this fantastic domestic season, England are going to play Samoa. Sean Wayne has named his squad. He's got Tompkins in as his manager, as we have said. Junior and Semba and Liam Marshall are the only two new caps in the side. Marshall, of course, Super League's top try scorer. I'm amazed, Stevo, to hear that Liam Marshall hasn't been capped before.
Well, he's a tough player. I admire him. I think he's great to watch. He never gives up. He's always going there. But it's amazing how many players that just get ignored all the way through their livelihood and all the way to time they're playing at top level and sometimes never got the nod to win a cap.
And Liam Marshall is one of them, but let's hope he gets his first cap against Tonga in this series, which is going to be played, of course, over 2 matches at Wigan and at Leeds. There are 6 players, 6 Englishmen coming home from the NRL: Victor Radley, Dom Young, Herbie Farnworth, Kai Pearce-Paul, Tom Burgess, Morgan Smithies. Big series this, isn't it, against Tonga, with the Aussies next year just around the corner and with Samoa having beaten us in the semi-final of the last World Cup.
Oh, it's going to be a good series, that's for sure. And look, I've got a smile from ear to ear in regards to the fact that finally we've got confirmation of what rugby league success needs, and that is international rugby league, contests. Though I'm a little bit sort of confused in regards to there'll be an Australian tour next year, and they're going to call it an England tour, not a Great Britain tour.
I thought you'd be a bit miffed about that. I thought you'd have something to say about this.
Well, I just can't understand it at all. It's to me, the tour has always been Great Britain. Now, a lot of people will tell you in Australia that the Aussies always call them England. Even sometimes on the I've got programs way back where they said Australia versus England when it was a Great Britain tour. Misconception there in regards to it, but anyone who has pulled on the jumper, to me, it should be Great Britain going on an Australian tour.
Well, it's England in 2025, the end of next season. At least, as you say, top class international rugby league is back on the agenda, and we'll also hear to that. Well, finally this week, Stevo, as chairman of the Hookers Union, I couldn't let the opportunity pass for you not to pay tribute to 2 great number 9s who will hang up their boots at the end of this year. Danny Houghton, the tackling machine of Hull, and Paul McShane, the brains of Castleford. They've revealed the time's up and they will retire in a couple of weeks' time. I hope they have a long and happy retirement, eh?
I hope so too, because you've just mentioned 2 very, very special hookers for different reasons, but they gave 100%. In fact, all the years that I was working with you at Sky, Eddie, I never saw those 2 players have a bad game. Now, to be able to say that, they've been playing for years for both Hull, black and white, of course, Paul McShane and Castleford, the Tigers, and it was just a pleasure to watch them, because even the crowd, they knew that when those 2 players were on the field of play, they'd not only give 100%, but you had a damn fine chance of winning the game.
Yeah, they ran their blood to water, didn't they? Both men, both of them, They really did. Good
Eddie,
stuff.
before you go,
yes, I thought you were going to make a comeback, aren't you? You said 7%.
No.
You're putting your hand up to take over from Danny and Paul, are you? Go on.
No, I wish them all the best. But on top of that, please let's not lose these players to the game. They may be retired from playing, but they have got an extraordinary experience. And it's not just about being able to talk to young players, etc. and so forth. It's the knowledge that they have gained by playing that.
Okay, that's the game done and dusted. We've put our views into the spotlight yet again, and we'll do the same again, same time next week. You up for that?
Of course.
Good lad. Good lad. Stevo for £1 this time next week.
Try £2.
See you next week.
Be good, top man.